Welcome to Sister Wives, and we are finally done with Maddie's weddings. Week and weeks of Maddie's weddings, and now we're going to get back to the storyline that I know you care about the most.
Christine getting married.
Wrong season, John. And not COVID, and not the Flagstaff move. No, it is the catfishing situation. This is season 11, episode 8, another catfish. I couldn't remember if it was catfishing or catfish. Part 1 or part A. This is one of those longer episodes that we split in half, and it totally should be split in half because at least the first half is Mary meeting up with another victim of the same catfish and a little bit about McKelty's wedding.
And a lot of it how Cody doesn't care about Mary at all.
Does not at all. Does not in the least bit. There's not a moment in here that I think he cares about anything other than maybe possibly the show.
Her money.
Oh, or her money, but he doesn't say that. So, and let me just be really clear about something. Whatever criticisms I have for Mary about how this story about the catfish is played off, there has never been a time where I've thought, that catfish must be a good person. That Lindsay/Sam. I'm going to believe them. I do not believe them. They are deeply, deeply, deeply unwell. Someone who does this is not someone that I'm ever going to trust with any information. Now, there were like voices.
At least they quit doing it after this.
No. They did it before Mary for something like maybe a decade, 8 years before Mary. And as far as I saw, I used to be on Twitter and I used to encounter this person relatively frequently, not because I followed them, but because I followed a lot of sister wife people who also followed them. And several of them were still trying to tell people, this person, I am not Batman or whatever. Sam is not Sam. This is a woman who is pretending to be a man who, you know, cheated Mary. They're still playing this game that like, oh, I'm gathering money for teachers and like all this kind of stuff. So yeah, never ever confused that I'm like, because sometimes people will be like, yeah, you know, I trust the catfish more than I do Mary. And I'm like, that is not what I am saying in any way, shape, or form. So Mary's going to meet with another victim of the catfish. She calls up Cody and says, hey, can I talk to you? Where are you? I'm at Janelle's. And we're like, right. She's
Well,
like, well,
so she met him at Janelle's and talked to him there with
No.
Janelle present.
no, she said, well, can we go over to Robin's house? And then she tells them that she's going to go. And Cody's only thing is like, I think if you just ignore it, it'll go away. Now, it is correct that I don't think she should be engaging with the catfish. But she's not talking about engaging with the catfish. She's talking about meeting somebody else who went through what she went through. And I'll tell you what I've never heard a therapist say. Just ignore it. If you have feelings and emotions, stuff them. Stuff them deep down, and they'll just magically go away. That's not how these things work. So right off the bat, and there's not a part of me that thinks that he is concerned about Mary for a second. Not a second. He is like, I think you should just ignore it and go away. I think he's annoyed maybe that she has her own episode that's kind of focused on her and her feelings and not just him and his feelings. He does not care. But it also definitely feels like Mary is there asking for Robin's approval. And Robin's like, well, so this is another victim of the catfish. And she's like, don't use that word. I'm not a victim. And it's like,
Victims get to feel however they want.
Yes. And if that is something that she does not resonate with, yes. But I also feel like it undermines the seriousness of the
Abuse. And
crime that was committed to her. I mean, however you want to word it, of somebody pretending to be someone else to then be, and it has a lot of this big, it reminds me of when Robin was like, I'm not a victim, sweetheart. Like, it feels very much like, and a lot of that language around like, oh, you just want to be a victim. Oh, it just feels very, there's something about it that set my teeth on edge, and I was like, ugh, okay, well, if that is how if that's how a victim wants to use it, then I support them. But it also feels very much like, I don't know. It definitely feels like she's come to Robin knowing that Cody will at least try to behave a certain way in front of Robin. And it definitely feels a little bit like going to Robin for permission. Christine and Janelle aren't there. I mean, you know, they don't have the closest relationship to begin with, but this whole like, we're a family stuff kind of falls apart when...
Well, and to be fair, it was probably Cody keeping everybody on edge except for, you know,
right.
Robin.
Keeping them split apart and separated and out of the loop. it's also interesting because at no point did they even interview Janelle and Christine about it and say anything. Because I think they probably would on camera at least have said something like, I hope this helps her and stuff like that. So it was just an odd conversation. She's like, I'm ready to just put the nail in the coffin. And Robin's like, I love that word. I don't know which word she meant because it wasn't a single word. Then Robin hugs Mary and Mary leaves. And Cody does not even hug her or say a nice thing or pat her on the shoulder.
So at least he's being his true, authentic self.
Yeah, I mean, he seemed less engaged than he did when McKelty came and asked him that she wanted to get married. Like, it was several rungs down the list than that. Let's see. Oh, and he was saying, and he still played it as like, well, what hurt me was that I was in the house and you were talking to other people. And I thought, dude, you barely showed up. And then you were just mad because you thought...
How dare she, for the 2 hours she got every fifth or sixth day, how dare she not just dote on him and wait on him hand in...
That's definitely how it came across. Was like, oh, the few times I am here, you have a life without me. It's like, yeah, because she's alone for... if we assume he was used to go over there one every 4 nights, that means for 3.5 days she was alone, and then he shows up and she's supposed to like fall all over herself. And he's like saying stuff like, she had, it's not just this one person she was friends with, she had other friends too. So I'm just like, but he's trying to really be like, and she's saying how, so she goes and she meets Cheryl. Cheryl was a victim of the catfish as well, about 4 years before Mary in Atlanta.
But the first thing Mary says when she gets to dinner, I've never even heard the word catfish.
Okay, and that really bothered John because...
Never been to a river?
No.
Lake?
I think she never heard of the idea of catfishing.
I know, but that's not what she said.
I know, John. I'm very sorry. So they explain how there was a Sam character and there's a Lindsay character, and we kind of get this idea that this has been going on for a while, and it seems like Cheryl says she knows at least 9 people off the top of her head who have been victims of this person. And it's just really odd to me.
And she's also never heard of a voice changer.
Yeah, they don't know how she sounded like a man.
We have cameras that...
Well, yeah, but this was a while ago.
And they do that.
Yeah, they had voice changers for a while. And then she's going to have things like, I was alone in my house. And I was, I was talking to people on social media. And I talk to people... I have a group of friends that are all writers that I've never met. I met one of them out of probably 2 or 3 dozen, and I've known them for a decade. So it's like this idea of like, oh, she was talking people on social media. I'm like, okay, Grandpa, welcome to the 2000s. That's actually pretty common.
This isn't Facebook with friends that are bots that just want to sell you stuff 100% of the time.
Yeah, until Zuckerberg has his way. But it's the idea of like, talking to people on the internet, like, yes, you do need to be careful, for sure, but at the same time, it's also not like this thing you've never heard of, where, oh, people have friends that they haven't met in person. And so Cheryl was one of the people that tried to kind of warn Mary. Like I said, when I was on Twitter, I don't know, 2 years ago or something, there were still people trying to warn people that were interacting with this account. It's crazy to me that they didn't change their name, go underground. I mean, maybe they just have so many overlapping like scams they can't give up on it. I don't know.
Apparently there are enough
lonely women. There's enough lonely
people to take advantage of that they don't even need to. So
yeah, it didn't seem to be anyway. So they said originally Sam kind of came in, was playing this like maybe I'll invest in my sister wife's closet, and they sent him a non-disclosure agreement. And a disclosure agreement, both Lindsay and Sam signed and returned, but never, they kept saying they're going to meet. Sam had leukemia. Lindsay, the best friend of 20 years, had colon cancer, which is the same. Mary's sister died of colon cancer. Remember, it was one of the early seasons. And Sam really wanted Mary to meet Lindsay. And so I guess they went on a day trip to California. Lindsay met Mary at her house in the cul-de-sac, as near as I can tell, and was on her computer. And then they went to California, and then on the trip is when she, like, it hardly takes a genius to pick up that whenever she got a text from Sam, Lindsay was either out of the room or already on her phone. And so it doesn't, I mean, it doesn't take it full of genius. If you were like on your phone typing, and then my phone went off, I'd be like, was that you? Do you know what I mean? Like, and then she said she kind of confronted her and got real physical. She said she found Lindsay to be a creep right away, which is the only reason why I find that odd is then why didn't Sam come off as a creep right away? Maybe it was only when she was in person with them. I don't really know. And they go back and forth in the similarities and the differences, and you know that Sam always has this female friend that, you know, vouches for him and says, oh, he's never loved someone like this. Oh, he's never done this. Oh, he's never done that. You know, he's so into you. Mary talks more about how she thinks that she was being stalked. Either there was something that she downloaded on her phone or something because they would know like where she was or what she was wearing and stuff. And that is scary, but I also kind of feel like, I mean, I guess it's the whole point is that she couldn't go to her family for support because she'd have to admit that she was talking to someone. And so, but it does seem like, I don't know, like you go to a production or a police officer or something. Okay. And then at some point, Mary's like, then Lindsay died, and Sam called her and was like all distraught because she was like, oh my gosh, they found her dead, but then she wasn't dead. And, you know, these stories get really outrageous. And one thing that she clarifies is Sam never took any money. This was not what I think many people typically think of as a catfishing scheme. Those of us who've watched 90 Day Fiancé know that at least for several seasons, I don't know if it's still, because I don't watch every season, there was at least one catfish, especially the before 90 days. That was the one that always had at least one or two catfishes, where it really, when it came down to, was money. I sent them money for this or for that, or sometimes even, they sent them money for their teeth, and they did get their teeth fixed, and they got bigger boobs and stuff like that. But that was not for, that was for them. But you know, I've known a couple people that, not quite catfish, but have been kind of like scams, because I've been in a lot of different like communities, and it's not unusual for there to be people there that are like, they see a community and they're like, oh, I'm going to have this hustle. And I encountered, most of them are for money. Oh, I'll teach you how to do this. You pay me and I'll mentor you. I'll sell you this class. I'll do, you know, send me supplies and I'll make you something, stuff like that. But I have encountered, there's at least, I always think of her whenever, I can't remember her name at all, but she was like supposedly like a writing teacher, and she did a camp, and I was like, I love a good class. And then the stuff she was saying just wasn't adding up. And it wasn't, and then she was like kind of using bullying techniques. So I was out of there within like a week, right? I was like, this is just weird. I don't get the vibe. But she never asked for money, and she never took money from anyone. And so it never made sense to me what she got out of it, other than notoriety in the community. And it's like the same way when I was a kid, I had a friend who would like lie and be like, at the time, Vanilla Ice was really popular. And she's like, oh yeah, my dad knows Vanilla Ice and can get us tickets and stuff. And at some point I realized that she was making stuff up. And I was just really weirded out by it. And we stopped talking because I didn't understand it. And now as an older person, I can go, oh, she just was lonely, and she thought that she needed to do that in order to have friends. And so I wonder if it's kind of something similar. And Mary, of course, was a big target because she was on TV, so maybe it made this person feel like important. Anyway, I don't know. I'm in grad school now, and maybe I'll discover. So the gal that she's meeting with, Cheryl, she said all her kids knew she was being catfished.
And knew there was no dude, and it was a lady. It
was probably a woman catfishing her, which is just interesting. Okay, so that is the end of that section. Well, for the moment it's the end of that section, we cut over to McKelty, and McKelty is sitting with Robin, her best friend. No, she's sitting with Christine, her mother. And I think Isabel was there, and Truly was there or something. And she is going to have them make flowers. She's going to make these fabric flowers, which are super cute. And they're going to make, she's going to have her bouquet. Her 8 bridesmaids have a bouquet. She's going to have one bouquet that she throws because she wants to keep her original one. And then, like, I don't know, I got a little confused. A bunch of 70 table settings, I think. I was a little confused, but they said 7,000 petals needed to be made for these. So I'm not sure how that breaks down. over the next 4 months. And Truly's really excited because she's like...
Seems like with a bajillion kids and a little child labor, it could be done in half an hour.
Well, and this is where I have my beef. Everybody keeps saying Christine wasn't supportive of Mykelti when she got married, but Robin was. But we've somehow managed to never catch that footage. Robin wasn't over the top any different than Christine was, and Christine was very defensive about Mykelti just wants to get married. This is not about selfishness. This is not about this. Whereas Robin actually wasn't. And so I've yet to see this proof of how Robin was so amazing and Christine was so bad. Because Christine's like, I just want to make, and she just keeps reiterating, I just want to get to know Tony. I want to get to know him better. I want to make sure that he's a good match for Mykelti, which to me does not seem being against their relationship, seems to be more of like, I just want to make sure that, you know, anyway. So I'm still so confused by this. So Truly saying how she can't wait for Mykelti to get married because she wants to be an aunt. And they explained to her, no, Mykelti is not going to have babies right away. She is going to go back to school and then have kids. And as near as I can tell, based on the age of her kids and when this was filmed, that is true. She doesn't have kids right away. I can't remember if she went back to school and they ended up finishing school or not. It's going to be a real joy for me to find out. And then Christine talks a bit about how in a couple of weeks they're going to go on a family vacation up to Utah. And it's a family vacation, but it's also to really get to know Tony and Mykelti. And she said, you know, I feel bad that I have my doubts, but I really just want to be protective of Mykelti. I want to get to know him better. And I think there's a big difference between I don't like him and I don't know him. She's just saying, I don't know him. I don't know how they are together. I don't know if they're compatible. And I think that's such a wildly different situation than I don't like him and I'm not sure if you should get married. So it's just really odd to me that it seems to be Mykelti alone who has all these narratives that somehow in 19 seasons we've never seen. Her and Robin were so close. And then they can't really show us any footage of it. Christine was so against Tony. They can't show us any footage of it. Robin was so supportive. They don't have any footage of it. Now, maybe it all happened off camera, but
Cody
it's just...
loves his wives. They don't have any footage of it.
Well, Cody says he doesn't love his wives, and there's all this footage against it. So, I think it's more like Cody is fair to all his wives. No footage of it. Anyway, we cut back. Mary and Cheryl have gone to a therapist together. Less for like group therapy and more of like, can you just explain to us what happened? Can you give us, which I think is a totally valid use of therapy. It's just be like, I'm so confused by these people's behavior and I emotionally don't know how to deal with it. I'm a fan of that. So they talk about how this person is a brilliant manipulator. They both kind of explain their situation again. They talk about how it was this whirlwind situation. There's lots of like promises and all that kind of stuff and how that kind of gets you off balance. And in both cases, they were both empty nesters. All of the people that they targeted were lonely, like they were divorced or widowed, which like, of course, that makes perfect sense. That she said, of course, I cannot diagnose this person. I have not met them. Very good clarification, but they probably have some sort of personality disorder. And that this behavior might have come from like neglect or child abuse or something like that, where they just learned how they were trying to figure out how to get what they felt like they needed. But I just wrote unwell. This person's unwell. So then we get this flashback to the therapy session that they had done as the family. And in that...
Cody's super engaged.
Yeah, Cody just kind of chews out Mary and she doesn't say anything. And my interpretation, my guess is that, you know, he's like, I went over there and you asked me not to come. My thought was, yeah, Mary, why don't you say, yeah, but you haven't been involved with me for years. You know, all this stuff that they were still hiding at that point for the safety of the family. And I think she just sat on it and didn't say anything because she knew it would never get better if she told the truth, which is, but Cody, you abandoned me a long time ago. This was part of the list, that she didn't take accountability. My guess. We don't know what was on the list. She hasn't said. But if I was Sookie, that would be the first question on my list.
My gosh.
You said there was a list. Can you list any of the things?
Can we see the list?
Can you tell us about maybe what we observed on the show?
Show us the list.
That was, you know, was it about like, was that about you and Janelle having to go? Was this about you not defending yourself during the catfishing thing. You know?
I would like to ask Cody about this list. Can you present it?
What is interesting to me, though, is that during that therapy session, I remember this, or sometime around it, Christine especially had a hard time figuring out that Mary had been talking to a woman. And she kept saying he, which is fair because I did that today when we did our rewatch for Patreon. I said he, because it's that idea that's who Mary thought she was interacting with, was a he, even if the he didn't exist. For the sake of the scam, there was a he. But it was interesting to me because you know who never screwed that up? Robin. Which is like, it's interesting to me that Robin seemed to have no problem understanding that a woman was behind it. And that many people have made accusations that Robin was behind the catfishing. If I was a betting woman, my bet is that it was more like passive negligence. In that she didn't orchestrate this. This person has clearly been doing this for years before they even had a show. Doing this for years and years. So I don't think she orchestrated it. But maybe did she turn a blind eye when someone reached out and said, hey, you should talk to Mary. The person she's talking to is not really a man, it's a woman. Did she maybe go, interesting. You know what I mean? Like that, if I was a betting woman, that's what my bet would be. You feel differently, that's fine, because I don't know that any of us are ever going to find out the truth. Because even if Sam came out and said, let me tell you what really happened, I don't believe it. I would never believe it. I know that there's some book written, but for all I'm considered, that's fan fiction about real life. Because I just don't, someone whose entire existence is lying and deceiving people, do I think I'm going to get a real story for them? No. I'm going to get whatever version pushes the narrative that they want, which is probably going to be to paint everyone else as worse than them. So anyway, I think it's interesting that Robin never seems to screw up the fact that the person behind all this was a she, whereas Christine clearly had nothing, because she doesn't seem to remember that it's a she. Because, well, when he did this, and she's like, no, she. Anyway, and they talk about the fact that Cody didn't even want her to bother going. He just thinks that if they just forget about it, it'll just go away. And I'm just like, yeah, because he wants to get back to his happy life with Ari and have episodes about him and Robin and how amazing Robin is. He just doesn't care about Mary.
Yep, there you go.
Whatever feelings he had for Mary at some point, and I have no doubt that he did, at this point he does not. He does not. Anyway, that's part one. The second half, it looks like we see Leon coming out, and we see maybe more about the wedding and this family trip. Okay, thank you for joining us. Bye.